Welcome to the Thinking Stack.
Okay, let's be brutally honest for a second. If your whole path to happiness feels like chasing every new trend, every biohack, every quick fix,
Yeah.
are you actually finding peace?
Or are you just, frantically trying to outrun something? Like maybe this constant optimization is just anxiety wearing a different outfit.
Exactly. That endless chase for something interesting.
Yeah, and maybe it's the very thing keeping you from what actually works. What if the life most people really want deep down is, well, kind of boring AF?
Okay, boring AF. And maybe that's not a problem.
Maybe that's the whole point. The feature, not the bug.
So that's what we're getting into today. This idea that real fulfillment, the sustainable kind, it might actually be found in, stability, routine, not constant fireworks.
Right. And we're going to unpack that using this 7-layer integrated thinking stack. We'll pull from brain science, old school philosophy, practical stuff.
No more shiny object hacks, then.
Hopefully not. We're aiming for something deeper, something that actually sticks.
All right, layer 1. Cognitive cleanse. Sounds a bit clinical. What's the real deal?
It's basically about seeing clearly. Stripping away the noise, the stuff you inherited, the biases, the illusions you tell yourself.
So cutting through the crap.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Getting down to what fundamentally works and why. Beyond the surface level advice. Less Instagram quotes. More reality.
Okay, so let's start with happiness. What even is it? That fleeting good feeling?
Well, neuroscientifically speaking, a lot of that good feeling is dopamine. It spikes with novelty, with anticipating a reward.
The wanting molecule.
Exactly. Dr. Lieberman and Long called their book The Molecule of More for a reason. Dopamine drives the seeking, the wanting, not necessarily the enjoying or the satisfaction once you get there.
Right, so it keeps us chasing.
Right.
But fulfillment, that's different.
Yeah, totally different. Think about Kahneman's idea in Thinking Fast and Slow. The difference between your experiencing self, feeling good right now, and your remembering self, looking back and feeling satisfied overall.
So happiness is like a spike. Fulfillment is more like a steady line.
That's a good way to put it. Happiness fades fast. Fulfillment is quieter, lasts longer. Kahneman actually found our long-term view is more about how we remember things than how we felt moment to moment.
Dopamine's the flashy liar, fulfillment's the reliable introvert. Got it.
Huh? Yeah, something like that.
So that explains why the new job, the new car, the buzz wears off so quick.
Precisely. It's called the hedonic treadmill. Brickman and Campbell talked about this way back in '71. We adapt our baseline resets and we start craving the next dopamine hit. Always chasing.
Okay, but surely people figured this out before brain scans. What did the old philosophers say?
Oh, absolutely. Marcus Aurelius basically nailed it centuries ago in Meditations, saying something like, you don't need much for a happy life. It's all in your way of thinking.
It's internal.
Right. And the Bhagavad Gita puts huge emphasis on focusing on your actions, your duties, not obsessing over the results. Like, you have a right to your actions, but not to the fruits of your actions.
So the satisfaction is in the doing, the alignment, not just winning.
Exactly. Detachment from the outcome, focus on the process. Ancient wisdom, modern science, they're kind of pointing the same way. Chasing highs just doesn't work long term.
So if we're not chasing dopamine hits, what should we be doing? What habits actually build that stable well-being?
Well, Dr. Andrew Huberman highlights a bunch of foundational things that are honestly pretty boring, but super effective.
Okay, hit me with the boring stuff.
Consistent morning sunlight, get your body clock right. Sleep, really prioritizing 7-8 hours. Maybe some brief cold exposure, like a cold shower, gives a more sustainable dopamine lift. Regular movement, exercise crucial for the brain. And nutrition, think high-protein breakfast, cutting down processed sugar, stuff that gives you stable energy and mood.
So the secret is being incredibly disciplined and having a routine that looks, frankly, boring AF.
Incredibly outrageously boring, and that's exactly why it works. It stabilizes you.
Is there one book you'd say really drills this home?
Yeah.
About dopamine and fulfillment?
Yeah, The Molecule of More, Lieberman's book. It just dismantles that myth of chasing happiness through external hits. Key takeaway. Don't confuse that dopamine anticipation buzz with real, lasting satisfaction.
Okay, so wrapping up layer 1, cognitive cleanse, it's about seeing that real fulfillment isn't some thrilling chase.
Exactly. It's quieter, it's stable, it's something you cultivate inside, not grab from the outside. The life you actually want might just be incredibly, outrageously boring by design.
All right, clarity is step 1, but just knowing what works, That's not the whole story, right? What about doing the right thing? How does ethics fit in? Okay, so we've cleared away some mental clutter, maybe embraced the beauty of boring. But here's the thing that bugs me. Even if I know what leads to stable satisfaction, how do I know I'm going about it the right way? Ethically.
Ah, yes, that's layer 2, moral intelligence. Because, let's face it, clarity without some kind of moral compass, that can lead to being effectively sociopathic, right? Ethics gives context.
Context, not just rules.
Exactly. Moral intelligence, as we're framing it, isn't about rigid universal rules. It's contextual. It's about figuring out what's right for you, right here, right now, considering your role, your duties, how your actions connect to others.
Sounds a bit slippery. Isn't there some solid ground?
Think of it less as rules, more as alignment. Like the Bhagavad Gita talks about dharma, your unique duty aligned with your nature. Aristotle's virtue ethics, all about character, built through consistent good choices.
So it's internal again, living up to your own nature.
Pretty much. Both traditions suggest morality comes from fulfilling your specific role, not just chasing some external ideal. The Gita literally says it's better to do your own duty imperfectly than someone else's perfectly.
Yeah.
And Aristotle, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is a habit.
Okay, so living true to your responsibilities. What about purpose then? Everyone's chasing passion, is that it?
Maybe not passion in the way we usually think of it. Purpose isn't usually found, it's forged through commitment. Viktor Frankl, in Man's Search for Meaning, an absolute must-read, nails this.
Frankl, the Holocaust survivor.
Yeah. He argued purpose comes when you dedicate yourself to something bigger than your own comfort or success. He actually said, don't aim at success or happiness directly.
Why not?
Because they ensue. They're side effects of dedicating yourself to a cause greater than yourself or to another person. It's about transcendence, not self-gratification.
So purpose comes from responsibility, from contribution.
That seems to be the key. It gets clearer the more you commit.
Is there any brain science backing this up? Morality and feeling good?
Oh, yeah. Richard Davidson's work at Wisconsin back around 2012 showed that things like compassion, altruism, helping others, they actually light up the reward centers in the brain, the long-term well-being circuits, like in the prefrontal cortex.
So doing good actually feels good to our brains in a sustainable way.
Seems like it. Science catching up with ancient wisdom again.
You mentioned context earlier. Does our physical state, like what we eat, affect our moral clarity?
Indirectly, definitely. Making good ethical calls requires you to be reasonably clear-headed and emotionally stable, right? Nutrition plays a huge role there.
How so?
Things like omega-3s, antioxidants, magnesium, tryptophan, they support mood stability, cognitive function. Think fish, leafy greens, balanced meals. It's not that eating broccoli makes you moral, but it supports the stable base you need for clearer thinking and emotional balance.
Okay, makes sense. But why is it so damn hard sometimes? Why do good intentions just fizzle out? Moral motivation fading.
Jonathan Haidt talks about this in the happiness hypothesis. He suggests moral fatigue hits hard when our morality is, like, externalized, driven by guilt or wanting praise instead of being part of who we actually are.
So it needs to be integrated, part of your identity.
Exactly. If it's core to who you believe you are, the motivation is much more likely to stick. It's not just something you do, it's who you are.
Right. Okay, book recommendation for this layer. You mentioned Frankl.
Definitely Man's Search for Meaning. It's tough, but powerful. It insists purpose and meaning come from responsibility, from sacrifice, not from chasing easy feelings. Key idea. You don't find purpose, you become it by committing to something beyond yourself.
So the mic drop for moral intelligence.
Purpose isn't out there. It's built day by day through commitment to things bigger than you. And real morality, it's not about looking good, it's about aligning your actions with your deepest responsibilities.
Which is why it can feel uncomfortable sometimes. It's about duty, not just dopamine.
You got it. Clear mind, moral compass, but life's messy. What happens when our best intentions slam into the brick wall of reality? The sheer complexity of it all. All right, so we've got some clarity, we're thinking about our moral compass, but let's get real. Even with the best intentions, things go sideways. Life is complicated. How do we deal with, like, unintended consequences, all the knock-on effects?
Yeah, welcome to the messy truth. That's layer 3. Systemic foresight. This is where your moral intentions meet the tangled web of reality. It's not enough to just mean well.
Why not? Because actions have ripples. You need to understand how your choices play out in the wider system, often in ways you didn't expect, sometimes even making things worse.
Systemic foresight. Sounds like I need a PhD. Practically, what does it mean?
It means thinking beyond the immediate result, asking, and then what? Considering the second, third order consequences, seeing the connections, recognizing that quick fixes often create bigger problems down the line.
Like, taking that promotion seems great, but the longer hours wreck your family life, and you end up less happy overall.
Exactly that kind of thing. Donella Meadows, in her amazing book, Thinking in Systems, basically said you can't just force your will on a system. You have to listen to it, understand it, work with it.
Okay. And this connects to things like Munger's second-order thinking.
Precisely. Always asking, and then what? Also, Kahneman's focusing illusion. We get so fixated on one thing, we totally miss the bigger picture and the side effects.
Right. The thing we're obsessing over might not be the most important factor systemically.
Often isn't. Our narrow focus blinds us.
So how do we balance that drive, that ambition, with just being content? It feels like a constant fight.
It is, and that tension is part of the system. Barry Schwartz talked about the paradox of choice.
Right.
Too many options can actually make us less happy. Systemic thinking means intentionally finding that balance.
Between striving and what? Savoring.
Yeah, exactly. Ambition needs to be balanced with gratitude, appreciating what you have. It's a cycle. Epicurus said something wise here too, like, don't spoil what you have by desiring what you don't. Remember, what you have now was once something you only hoped for.
Easier said than done, but okay. So less constant pushing, more rhythm.
Yes, a sustainable rhythm, not trying to max everything out all the time.
How does this apply to motivation? Staying energized long-term without burnout?
Well, again, think systemically. It's not about relentless drive. Andrew Huberman talks about managing dopamine cycles of pursuit and stepping back, letting levels reset. Systemic foresight means building rest and recovery into the system, not just tacking it on when you collapse.
So downtime isn't lazy, it's strategic for the system.
Absolutely critical for long-term function. Fulfillment comes from rhythm, not a constant sprint.
What habits support that systemic balance day to day?
The foundational stuff, again, really, consistent sleep, regular movement, maybe some intermittent fasting for metabolic health, definitely a low-inflammation diet, whole foods, less processed junk. And crucially, scheduling actual rest and reflection, downtime.
Building a sustainable lifestyle, not just chasing goals.
Exactly. Healthy routines create systemic stability.
And for productivity, how do we work intensely without crashing the system?
Balance again. Cal Newport's deep work idea is relevant here. Intense, focused bursts, maybe 90 minutes, followed by real breaks. Recovery. You need both. Intense focus needs to be balanced with intentional downtime.
Work smart, rest smart.
Pretty much. Intensity plus recovery.
What's the go-to book for getting your head around this systemic view?
Gotta be Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows. It really opens your eyes to how interconnected things are and how simple actions can have complex, unexpected results if you don't see the whole picture. Key idea. Short-term logic often leads to long-term collapse if you ignore the system.
So, the core lesson here.
Our choices echo. Lasting fulfillment means looking beyond the immediate, considering the ripples, balancing the drive with the appreciation, the work with the rest.
And again, the irony. A fulfilling life, seen systemically, isn't about chaos and excitement. It's about finding a stable, sustainable rhythm. Intentionally a bit boring, maybe?
Predictable, in a good way, because you've thought about the system.
Okay, systems thinking makes sense, but we're still human. We're not just cogs in a machine. What about our messy emotions, our biology? How does that fit?
And we've layered on clarity, morality, systems thinking. But come on, we're not purely logical creatures, are we? We have feelings, instincts, history, baggage. Why do we still screw things up sometimes, even when we kind of know better? Self-sabotage. Totally. And that's layer 4, embodied insight. This is where we have to get real about being biological creatures. Our decisions aren't just made in our heads. They're shaped massively by our nervous system, our emotions, evolution, past experiences, trauma even.
Embodied insight. Like listening to your gut.
More than just listening, understanding how the body and brain are constantly talking, shaping what we feel and do. Bessel van der Kolk's work in The Body Keeps the Score is huge here. He shows how stress and trauma literally get stored in the body.
Stored physically, not just memories.
Yeah, physiologically. It reshapes your nervous system, how you react to things now, often totally unconsciously. Your body's constantly scanning for threats based on past data.
Wow. Okay, so that explains why motivation can just evaporate sometimes,
Yeah.
even when we want something.
It can, yeah. From this embodied view, motivation isn't just willpower. Your nervous system's top priority is safety and efficiency. If it predicts pursuing a goal will lead to stress or overwhelm based on past experience, it might just pull the plug on motivation, protective mechanism.
So it's not laziness, it's biology.
Could be. Lisa Feldman Barrett argues in how emotions are made, that emotions are basically predictions. If your brain predicts a goal leads to feeling bad, it'll try to steer you away. Our biology has its own logic.
Okay, so how do we work with this biology, not fight it?
It's about cultivating nervous system regulation, reducing chronic stress. Things like an anti-inflammatory diet helps. Regular movement is key. And practices like breath work, mindfulness stuff Huberman talks about a lot, they help shift your nervous system into a calmer, clearer state.
So those wellness things are actually nervous system tools.
Pretty much. They build a more stable foundation for your conscious intentions. A regulated system is less likely to hijack your plans.
What about deeper stuff? Ingrained emotional patterns, trauma.
That often requires more specific approaches. Somatic experiencing, developed by Peter Levine, is one example. It focuses on body awareness to help release that stuck energy from trauma, processing the physical sensations.
So healing isn't just talking, it's feeling in the body.
Exactly. As Levine says in Waking the Tiger, the body holds wisdom the mind might block. Reconnecting is key.
Did older traditions get this mind-body link?
Oh, absolutely. It was central. Buddhist mindfulness, especially Kayasati, mindfulness of the body. Yogic practices aiming for equanimity. Smadvam, emotional balance through integrating mind and body. Even the Gita's focus on acting without attachment, verse 2.48, or the Buddha's focus on breath. They're deeply embodied practices.
Practical tools for regulation, not just spiritual ideas.
For sure. They knew mind and body were inseparable.
Book that really illuminates this body-mind connection.
Van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score. It's profound. Shows how trauma lives in the body and how body-focused work can heal. Key insight. Your past isn't just memory, it's physiology shaping you right now.
So the core of embodied insight.
We're emotional, biological beings first, rational thinkers second. Real clarity, real fulfillment means understanding and nurturing that connection, taking care of your nervous system.
And that means more boringly consistent self-care, gentle attention to our physical and emotional state.
Predictably uneventful, perhaps.
Yeah.
But deeply regulating.
Okay, got the biology. But we're not isolated blobs of biology. We live in groups. How do other people, culture, tribes, how does all that impact this fulfilling life thing? Okay, we're digging into our own biology, our inner world. But we don't live in bubbles, right? We're surrounded by people, expectations, culture. How does the outside world, our social world, mess with our plans for a fulfilling life?
Oh, massively. That's layer 5, human-centered design. We have to acknowledge we're fundamentally tribal creatures, wired for social connection, for status, for fitting in. Our decisions, habits, even what feels fulfilling, are hugely shaped by the groups we're in.
Human-centered design sounds like product development applied to life.
Kind of, yeah. It means designing your life acknowledging how humans actually behave, not how we think we should behave. We're predictably irrational, as Dan O'Reilly showed. We follow cues, we copy others, we seek belonging.
So less rational individual, more
Yeah.
sophisticated herd animal.
Ouch. But yeah, there's a lot of a truth to that. Kahneman's work on heuristics and biases shows our thinking shortcuts. Robert Cialdini in Influence explained how conformity is a basic survival instinct. Fitting in feels safe deep down.
So social pressure often beats logic.
Way more often than we like to admit. Culture shapes us profoundly. Deviating feels risky on a primal level.
Okay, so if we know we're like this, how do we use it? How do we design a better life using our social nature?
This is where James Clear's Atomic Habits is brilliant. He stresses designing your environment and making your desired habits the social norm within your circles. Identity-based habits. Who do you want to be? What do people like that do? Surround yourself with cues and people that reinforce that.
So change your environment, change your tribe, maybe, instead of just relying on willpower.
Exactly. Design beats discipline most days. Make the good choice the easy, socially accepted choice.
How does something basic like diet fit into this?
Hugely. Think about Dan Buettner's Blue Zones research places with exceptional longevity. What do they have in common? Strong social networks, often centered around shared meals, culturally ingrained healthy eating patterns. Who you eat with influences what you eat.
So your friends can literally make you healthier or not?
Absolutely. Social context is powerful for health behaviors.
Did ancient thinkers get this social design aspect?
For sure. Confucius, for instance, put enormous emphasis on rituals and social harmony. He saw shared customs and good relationships as the bedrock of a fulfilling life, both for the individual and society.
The power of shared practices.
Exactly. They understood the social fabric shapes us.
Why does being part of a group, like a running club or a book group, make sticking to things so much easier?
Accountability and belonging. David McClelland's research at Harvard showed that socially supported motivation is way more sustainable. When your tribe reinforces your goals, it creates powerful encouragement and makes it harder to quit.
So finding your people isn't just nice, it's strategic for fulfillment.
Absolutely. A powerful support system for the life you want.
Best book for understanding this social influence on habits.
Yeah, I'm going to get Atomic Habits. Clear gives such practical ways to use environmental and social design to build good habits. Key insight. Change is less about willpower, more about shaping your world so the right actions become almost automatic, almost normal for your group.
Okay, so the takeaway for human-centered design.
We're social animals. Fulfillment is partly socially constructed. You become what your environment rewards. So be intentional about designing your environment, your communities, your cultural inputs.
The life you want is kind of a carefully designed group ritual.
In a way, yeah. Less about solo effort, more about collective alignment.
Right.
Clarity, morals, systems, biology, social design, covered a lot. But life throws curveballs. Big ones sometimes. What about chaos? When everything just falls apart. All right, we've designed our routines, found our tribe, aligned our values. Sounds great on paper. But let's be real. Life happens. Pandemics happen. Jobs disappear. Chaos hits. How does this whole fulfilling life idea survive contact with, actual reality?
Yeah, the unavoidable truth. That leads us straight into layer 6, risk and resilience. Because a truly fulfilling life isn't about building walls high enough to keep chaos out that's impossible. It's about building the capacity to navigate it, to bounce back, maybe even get stronger from it.
Stronger from chaos. How does that work?
Nassim Nicholas Taleb calls it being anti-fragile. Some things break under stress, fragile. Some resist stress, robust. But some actually benefit from shocks and volatility. They get stronger. That's anti-fragile.
So resilience isn't just toughness, it's adaptability, growth through stress. Exactly. It's not just bouncing back, it's bouncing forward. Learning, adapting, improving because of the challenge. It's about intelligent risk-taking, like Gerd Gigerenzer talks about, and risk-savvy, understanding possibilities, preparing, not trying to eliminate all uncertainty.
Why do setbacks knock us back so hard, though? Why does motivation just crater when things go wrong?
Often it's because we're terrible at predicting how bad things will feel. Daniel Gilbert called it effective forecasting errors in stumbling on happiness. We overestimate how happy good things will make us, and crucially, how devastated bad things will make us, and for how long.
So we panic because it feels worse than we thought it would.
Yeah, and we underestimate our ability to cope over time. The initial shock feels overwhelming.
So what can we actually do to build this anti-fragility? Practical stuff.
Mentally preparing helps a lot. Things like scenario planning, thinking through potential problems before they happen. The Stoics were masters of this with negative visualization, contemplating potential losses to reduce their sting if they occur. William Irvine covers this well in A Guide to the Good Life.
Mentally rehearsing disaster. Sounds grim.
It's about preparedness, not pessimism.
Yeah.
Reduces shock, increases readiness. Also building redundancy backup plans, financial cushions, strong social support networks, having buffers.
Safety nets. Makes sense. What about physical health? Does that play a role in resilience?
Huge role. Your physical state is the foundation. An anti-inflammatory diet, good gut health, regular exercise, they all contribute to physiological resilience. Harvard Medical School research backs this up. A healthier body handles stress better, physically and emotionally.
So eating well and exercising is literally building resilience.
Yep, strengthening your capacity to handle shocks.
What about ancient wisdom on dealing with chaos?
Stoicism? Again, it's huge. Seneca famously said stuff like friction polishes the gem, trials perfect the person, challenges make you stronger. And Taoism, like in the Tao Te Ching, emphasizes flexibility. The supple branch bends in the storm, the rigid one snaps.
Adaptability over rigidity, flow over force.
Exactly. Resilience is often about bending, not breaking.
How do we keep that sense of fulfillment alive when things are genuinely tough?
Meaning becomes critical. Martin Seligman's PERMA model highlights purpose as a key pillar of well-being. When you're anchored to something meaningful, bigger than the current problem, you can weather storms much better. Your why gets you through the how.
Purpose as an anchor in chaos.
Definitely. It provides perspective and strength.
The book that captures this thriving on chaos idea best
has to be Taleb's Anti-Fragile. It completely reframes how you think about uncertainty and stress. Mind-bending stuff. Key idea. Stop trying to avoid randomness. Learn how to benefit from it.
Okay, so the core of risk and resilience.
Fulfillment isn't found by avoiding chaos, but by building the strength and flexibility to navigate it. Prepare for uncertainty, don't hide from it. Chaos is guaranteed, fragility is optional.
And by planning for the unpredictable, paradoxically, we create a deeper kind of stability.
Precisely. A resilient stability.
Okay, last layer. We've got the knowledge, the mindset, the strategies. But how do we actually do it? Consistently. Turn all this insight into action. Right, final layer. We've got this incredible stack of insights, clarity, morality, systems, biology, social context, resilience. But knowing isn't doing. How do we bridge that gap? How do we actually execute, make this stuff happen day in, day out?
The million-dollar question, that's layer 7. Execution engine. This is purely about practicality, turning insight into consistent, measurable action. Fulfillment isn't theoretical, it's built through doing.
Execution engine. Sounds like we need project managers for our lives.
Maybe a little. It's about applying an experimental mindset. Think Eric Ries's build, measure, learn loop from the lean startup, but for your life. Try small things, see what happens, learn, adjust. Or John Boyd's ODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act. Keep moving, keep adapting.
So less grand plan, more. Small experiments and learning.
Exactly. Action and feedback are everything. Wisdom comes from doing and seeing what works for you.
Why does that initial burst of motivation always seem to fade, though? Why is consistency so hard?
Because motivation is unreliable. B.J. Fogg nails this in Tiny Habits. It's an emotion. It comes and goes. Lasting change isn't built on motivation. It's built on habits that are so easy, so integrated, you barely need motivation to do them.
Tiny habits. Small, consistent steps beating big, heroic efforts.
Every single time. Consistency is the superpower.
Okay, specific tactics. How do we make consistency easier?
Simple, proven stuff. James Clear's 2-minute rule. If it takes less than 2 minutes, just do it now. Peter Gollwitzer's implementation intentions. Make a specific plan. When situation X arises, I will do behavior Y. Makes it concrete.
Perfect example. And Clear's habit stacking. Link a new habit to one you already do. After I brush my teeth, I will do 10 push-ups. Make it automatic.
Make it easy, make it obvious, make it part of the routine.
You got it. Simplicity and clarity drive action.
And how does our physical state support actually doing things consistently? Consistent action needs consistent energy, focus, and emotional stability. Stable blood sugar is huge. Balanced meals help. Getting enough magnesium, omega-3s, basic stuff, staying hydrated. Andrew Huberman links these directly to mental stamina, decision-making. You can't execute well if you're running on empty or your brain's foggy.
Taking care of the body is part of the execution strategy.
Foundational. Your physical capacity enables consistent action.
What did the ancients say about just getting things done?
Huge emphasis on consistent effort. Lao Tzu. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It starts small, but it requires starting and continuing. The Bhagavad Gita constantly stresses regular action, performing your duties. Action is indeed better than inaction.
Start small, keep going.
That's the essence of execution, ongoing commitment.
And the best book for mastering this art of consistent action.
I'd circle back to Atomic Habits. Clear provides such a practical, actionable system for building good habits. It's all about those small 1% improvements adding up. Key insight. Forget massive leaps. Focus on tiny, consistent actions. That's how real change happens.
Okay, so the final mic drop for execution engine.
Insight without action is just daydreaming. Real fulfillment comes from the relentless, daily grind of small, simple actions done consistently. Seek consistent simplicity, not elusive perfection.
So the life we want isn't built in breakthroughs, but in the, predictably boring execution of tiny habits.
Okay, let's quickly pull it all together, the whole stack. Layer 1, clarity. Fulfillment is quiet stability, not chasing highs. Layer 2, morality. Purpose comes from duty and commitment beyond self. Layer 3, foresight. Balanced striving with contentment. See the whole system. Layer 4, embodiment. Tend to your nervous system, your biology first. Layer 5, social context. Design your environment. You're shaped by your tribe. Layer 6, resilience. Build strength through chaos, not by avoiding it. And Layer 7, execution. Turn insight into reality through small, consistent actions.
So the final, brutally honest truth after all that.
The life you really want. It probably isn't going to look extraordinary from the outside. It's likely to be extraordinarily consistent. Fulfillment isn't some prize you win. It's the outcome of daily alignment, quiet resilience, simple habits stacked over time.
Predictable, stable, maybe even boring AF.
Boring AF by design. And that's precisely why it actually works. That wraps up our deep dive. Thanks for joining us on The Thinking Stack.